My investment line is off, and this is the start of the podcast. Wait, is it recording?
Yes.
Okay. This is the start of the podcast. You're listening to the new sounds of the Minority Arts Appreciation Society podcast. Mattie and Joshua. This is 101 FM. We're live at you, top of the flats. Can't see us, but you can hear us. We're loving it. You're loving it. Sweet as a fucking nut. All right, Mattie. That was the intro. How are you doing today?
I am so ready today. I'm so ready to just knock this one out of the park.
So here's a really fun story. We recorded this entire episode a few days ago. It was a solid 1.5 hours long. I mean, 1 and 10 minutes, I should say. And it was a good episode. One of our best episodes.
We were really happy.
We were so happy with it. And then I had some essays due. Mattie had some work, and I fucked up. I lost the episode. It's gone.
Not your fault. I should have told you.
It's gone now. So we're re-recording it. And this will be a briefer, snappier episode due to the fact that we've talked about these albums already. So we don't want to spend too long on them again. But still, hopefully, we can give you something entertaining. And for fans or haters of these albums, you will still get some content that you enjoy. Today, sorry, yeah, go on.
Well, it just wouldn't be like. We could just literally repeat what we said last time, because I remember a lot of what we talked about, but that just would be so dry of energy. It would be so...
I'll put it this way. Okay, listeners, think of this as like watching Empire Strike Back, but you haven't seen the first Star Wars, you know? You're watching a sequel to a podcast that you never listened to. This is a continuation of the discussion. And today we're discussing... 3 albums, 2 new, 1 old, as is the formula of this show. The first album will be Billie Eilish's When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go? The second album is Little Simz' Grey Area. And the third album, I can edit out the parts of me being a drunk idiot. And the third album is Father John Misty's I Love You, Honeybear. So
I can edit out the parts of me being a drunk idiot. Sounds like a Father John Misty lyric. Yeah, sorry.
Nothing good ever happens at the goddamn Minority Arts Appreciation Society podcast. Right. let's just jump right into it. To quote, what was the YouTuber who said that? Is it Ray William Johnson? Yeah. Let's just jump right into it. So, Mattie, what did you think of Billie Eilish's When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go?
As you know, Josh, I hate this. I do regret the amount. I regret the use of the word "fucking" in my introduction to my opinion of this album last time. I think the hatred.
Would you like to recreate your use of the word "fucking" in your introduction of your opinion last time?
It's actually like so violent. I fucking hated it. It was so horrible, and I instantly regretted it. But if you take out the fucking, then the hatred stays the same, you know. This is my least favorite album of the year, so far, and probably will be by the end. Actually, maybe not by the end. That's a lot. Like that's a lot to commit to.
I mean, you're fucking lucky I haven't put the new Matt DeMarco album on the schedule.
I'd be so upset with you. I'd be so upset with you.
If Tyler the Creator and Injury Love didn't drop, you would be listening to Matt DeMarco. I want you to know that.
Thank God they exist. Like, not just because their music's great, but like, God.
Go on. Why, in specifics, do you dislike the new Billie Eilish album?
We kind of came to the conclusion that this kind of music doesn't work for me. But I think there's also reasons in the album that go beyond just subjective. I really find her auditory persona on this really boring. I think her vocals are incredibly lacking. In most places in the album, this isn't. There's exceptions, as there are with a lot of criticisms of music. But God, I think my main problem is that she sings about a variety of different topics in the exact same way. And there are some interesting elements in the production, like in Bad Guy, to do with her vocals specifically. But I really feel like the tone of her voice, which is, it's a human performance we're listening to. It's really the tone for me that I'm looking for here. That really took away from the album for me. She sings about very serious topics the same way she'll sing about really like fun and like hearted ones. um and I just kind of feel like, well, she's not making me care, she's not giving me a reason to care, so I don't.
Well, I completely disagree with you. I really enjoyed this album, and this is one of my favorite pop albums of the year. I think that I disagree with what you say about her voice. I do think that her voice has a harder, grittier vibe in songs like Bad Guy, and You Should See Me in a Crown, especially the production onto her voice. However, I think in tracks like Listen Before I Go and I Love You, her voice takes on a softer, intimate, more vulnerable vibe. And this leads me to what my favorite thing about the album is, which I don't feel like I fully expounded on the first time we discussed this, is I think this album is a masterclass in dealing with tone. So this album does a great job at never getting too dull with the tone and switching the tone up while always managing to stay cohesive. So a problem I have with some albums is, you have the first half of the album is like really fun tracks, and the second half is really like sad tracks. And it's a very jarring shift. Whereas I feel like this album in the sequencing and in the way she links the tracks together through lyrics juggles the varying tones it deals with very well. The shift from Bad Guy to Zanny is surprisingly expertise in terms of how we go from a banger track, in my opinion, from Bad Guy to a more somber, introspective track in Zanny. And moreover, and I didn't get to talk about this last time, so I'm happy I get to talk about it this time. The final track, Goodbye, actually includes one line from every previous song. And after Listen Before I Go, a song about suicide, a very good storytelling track. And then I Love You, which is a song about kind of regretting letting yourself be vulnerable with someone and wishing you never, took that step with them. You get Goodbye, which is a very intimate, quiet, solemn closing to an album that was full of good humor in tracks like My Strange Addiction and Wish You Were Gay. And in Goodbye, we see a line from each song repeated in a very solemn way. And when we get to the final line, oh, I should add that when the lines are repeated, they go in order, but in reverse order. And we get to the final line, I'm the bad guy. And it's produced with this beautiful reverb at her voice, this vibration sound put on her voice as it drones out. And suddenly that bad guy track, which was so fun and so exuberant earlier on, becomes this sinister, self-loathing ending note of the album. And I think this is a perfect example of how great this album is at balancing the tone between tracks like All the Good Girls Go to Hell and Listen Before I Go. This is a great example of a pop album that's able to both be fun and danceable, but also introspective and melancholic. And I think that's the main reason why I was really won over by this album.
For me, I think there are certain things that you can praise about the way the album is balanced as a whole, but my main issues come with the songwriting themselves. I think the songwriting is really flat. I think a lot of the ideas that actually come in the minutiae of the deep cuts here are just really unoriginal and just really uninteresting to me. I do think it really picks up towards those last three songs. I think that's when she actually it's where she feels like she's trying most. It's where I actually feel like she gives a shit, and I just don't. I just don't understand what's special. I really don't. I just really feel like there's nothing that she does across this album that takes these elements that I would kind of feel, are not breaking new ground in terms of songwriting and song topics. She does. I feel like she just does very little in terms of the second to second enjoyment of these tracks that grabs me sonically. A lot of the artistic choices she made across the album, I just found kind of irritating. while I like the end of Bad Guy, I just find it. God, I find a 17-year-old just whispering "I'm the bad guy" for 30 seconds at the end. That's just cringy to me, and I just don't. It doesn't feel elevated above that.
Well, that's your opinion, Maddie, and that's cool. And we respect opinions here on the Minority Arts
Minority Arts
Appreciation
Appreciation
Society
Society.
podcast. And to quote Billie Eilish in "All the Good Girls Go to Hell," I cannot do this snowflake. And on that note, I would like to move on to what were your favorite tracks and what were your least favorite tracks? And overall, would you recommend this album to our beautiful, gorgeous, fantastic listeners?
It's so fucking hot in my room. Can I open a window? I think this Red Bull is murdering me.
Don't you open up that window.
Shut up.
I can't wait for the day we do a Travis Scott review.
The Red Bull is eating my insides.
Red Bull's fucking worse than cigarettes, dude. You shouldn't drink Red Bull.
Yeah, I think I legitimately shortened my lifespan. Oh god. Okay, top three tracks. We got Bad Guy. These are none. I'm sorry, but I have to say none of these are songs I like. Like these are just the ones I hate the least. Uh, Bad Guy. My Strange Addiction. Actually, My Strange Addiction. It's almost there, but then there are these pretentious fucking Office samples in there for some reason, and it's like, oh hey, remember when people gave a shit if you watched The Office?
I
Oh yeah,
believe the word you're looking for is playful and endearing.
no, no. I believe the word I'm looking for is forced relatability. That's two words. But I'm going for actually you did the exact same thing. You said word and you said two words. This is just
What can I say? I'm the bad guy.
yeah, terrible Office samples, completely pointless. But kind of a good song. And I'll give you listen before I go cuz yeah, whatever. Worst song by far. I fucking absolutely hate this. This is probably going to be my least favorite song of the year. Um, I'm gonna do the same comparison I did last time, and Josh is gonna get really upset. So you should see me in a crown. Terrible song. Terrible song. If you're gonna give this album a try, which spoilers, I don't recommend you do. Skip this song, please, no matter what. If you don't enjoy those first three songs, don't listen to this because God, you
Can I
won't
can I
recover.
say something? Can I say something?
Fine, go on.
You should see me in a crown. Clap emoji slaps. Clap emoji. It's a great song, and it's a great Sherlock reference. And that fucking dude who played Moriarty was great in the show, the fucking TV show Fleabag. And if you have a TV license, or if you don't have a TV license, if you can pirate that show, watch it on Putlocker or some shit,
What?
because he was really good in that show.
A
Um,
Sherlock a Sherlock reference actually makes sense on this album because this whole album reminds me of Tumblr. So, you know.
implying that there's anything wrong with Tumblr.
Eh, okay.
All right, so you don't recommend the album, suffice to
I
say.
don't recommend the album. Oh, and You Should See Me in a Crown is just as bad as that one Taylor Swift song. What's it fucking called? Look What You Made Me Do. Yeah, it's just as
Okay,
bad as that. I
I'm
had
just
to
gonna
make it.
I'm gonna edit that out of spite of you.
No,
Anyway,
don't fucking get fucking
so my three favorite tracks were "Listen Before I Go," a very touching, beautiful, solemn take on kind of like the suicide storytelling in the album. It's dealing with very serious issues, and something that I'm happy that so many young people are kind of enjoying and relating to because mental illness is a big deal at the moment, and I feel like this album deals with it very well. I really love the ambient sounds of rain trickling down and ambulance or police car driving in. It's a very scenic and cinematic track to get near closer. Zanny, I also really enjoy. It's a very subversive track. I love the kind of like bass boosted vocals in certain parts of the verse. It's very disorienting and cerebral moment on the album. And lastly, Bad Guy, which is one of the most fun pop singles I've heard all year. I love, love, love the music video. And I really love the playful lyrics, like Mike's is used to dad type. That shit's fucking hilarious. It's a good time. It's a good song to drink wine to. And then my least favorite track is When the Party's Over. Surprisingly, this is actually one of her most popular songs. But I do think this is legitimately the most dull track on the album. And all of the criticisms that Mattie's had throughout this review is applicable to When the Party's Over. I really did dislike that track. Overall, I would recommend this album. I think it's pretty great. One of my favorite pop albums. It does a great balancing of dark and edgy, while also being playful and fun and sincere and emotional. So I'd recommend you guys check this out. The next album we're the next album we're reviewing is Little Simz, Grey Area.
Yeah.
Repping our hometown London. Now, Mattie, from recollection of the previous recorded podcast, has no previous history with Little Simz. But was she blown away by her introduction? We will find out now.
Wonderful. Well, yeah, like usual, I have no history, as Josh just mentioned. That was incredibly hard to say. And I've had nothing to drink. Uh, was I blown away by this introduction? Absolutely, I was. This is one of my favorite albums of the year so far. Music for me has really picked up this month. It's fucking crazy. At least from what I've heard this month.
The last 2 Fridays we just had were crazy. Like my schedule got so fucked up.
Yeah, I have such a backlog at this point. But anyway, on to the album. God, this is fantastic. Definitely one of my favorite hip hop albums of the year, for sure, no doubt at this point. Just what raw talent she brings to this thing in every single facet of hip hop. There's no element that Little Simz doesn't absolutely excel in on this album, and it's wonderful. It's absolutely captivating at every moment, and yeah, just wow, I am blown away.
That's excellent to hear. I completely agree. Yeah, that's excellent to hear. I also love this album. This was an album that was getting lots of hype during its release. I was already semi-familiar with Little Simz from her collab with the Gorillaz, which is actually a really cool song. And also like her previous album, I think there's something about Wonderland. There was like a kind of cartoony album cover. Looked cool, but I never checked it out, regrettably. But Grey Area, it really seems like this is a breakout album that everyone's been listening to, and I fucking loved it. I remember the instant I put it on, and there was like opening drums and synths at the beginning of the first track. I knew I was in for something special. Yeah, offense. I was in for a really good time, and yeah, it was amazing. And I remember like listening to the song "Boss." I was like getting off the bus and walking down the street, and I felt like screaming because I was so excited. I really wanted to shout at the closest like middle-aged white man, "I'm a boss in a fucking dress." You know what I mean? Like it was such a great line. And yeah, the album maintained quality throughout. It's a great listen. I think this album does a great job at showing a great balance of kind of bangers and also low-key track. Obviously, this is a London hip hop album, and it does a great job at kind of. One thing about grime that's really frustrating is grime. It's some of the, in my opinion, some of the best beats in the world because of its influence from electronic music and jungle and garage. Yet a lot of that is kind of wasted on grime's lack of focus on lyrics, which is fine. I get that it's mostly about the garage/jungle influence, but this album shows that you can really have fucking crazy beats like on Venom and Boss, which are very jungle grime influenced, but also have that kind of hip hop sensibility of taking time with your bars and writing shit that really pops. Even though this album's called Grey Area, the vibrance of its bars are super colorful.
Oh, what a lovely metaphor. I think that's a metaphor. Yeah, so like I said, didn't really have any history with Little Sims. I just knew she was from London, so yeah, I was pretty confident it was going to be grime. But then when the album starts off, Offense, it begins with this kind of this drum beat that has a lot of jazz rhythm to it. So I was kind of like, oh, is this gonna be like a jazz rap album, kind of thing. But then in comes this synthy kind of beat that felt very grimy, very like bass heavy beat. So I was like, okay, grime, and then a third element comes in, and that's these sort of orchestral strings. Um, and it's just wonderful. Like it's a wonderful fusion that's executed effortlessly, and it's a perfect summary of this whole album. In that, Little Sims here isn't serving any one particular genre or any one particular style. She is taking whatever elements she needs to make this album as good as it possibly can be, and to service the the artistic intention that she's putting across here. It's just absolutely fantastic. So she creates this gray area by by a fusion of all these elements and fusing her going from complete confidence to incredible vulnerability at the hands of a scorned lover. It's absolutely wonderful, and at all times I never felt a jarring contrast between her lyrics and instrumentals or even her flow. At every moment, her pacing, her and her specific lyrics just perfectly enrapture you in emotion, in a way that a lot of hip hop doesn't do. It's really, of course, all hip hop and all music that uses rap is poetry, but this is poetry that conveys a very like human element of just blurred emotions. And it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. It's such a human
You
album.
phrased your thoughts very beautifully there. I was very moved by that. Before we get on to our favorite and least favorite tracks, I just like to say a couple of the proper problems I have with this album. I do think she as a rapper outshines the production at points. On songs like Pressure, Sherbet Sunset, and Flowers, I really do think that the production could do with a bit more kind of pizzazz. And it is a bit more drab compared to how amazing she is as a rapper. And I kind of just wish there was just some stronger production at some points of this album. There were some points where I felt a bit middling. Um, yeah. And also, I feel like there were points where it could have been sequenced slightly better. There were some really like jarring transitions between tracks. Between Boss and Selfish, that was a really jarring transition. As well as from Venom to 101 FM to Pressure. It just felt really discombobulated. And while these are all great songs, I just feel like this album could have been sequenced better, to had a better flow.
I completely agree. You said
Yeah.
this on our initial recording, and actually, since you said it, it has become like I haven't listened to this album all the way through many times since we recorded, but it's something I'm much more aware of now. And yeah, it is really true. I would especially that transition between Boss and Selfish. That's really tough. The other ones, like I do agree, but that one, I wondered why I found Selfish so weird, because individually as a song, I do think it's really nice and I really like it. But God, it comes out of nowhere.
Yeah. It's a tough tightrope to play because you don't want to put all the tracks of one vibe on one end of the album and all the tracks of the other vibe on another end. But at the same time, you've got to, you got to make it flow. It does feel very jarring. And yes, Selfish sounds way better on its own as a single than when it's following Boss, like you just said. So yeah. But anyway, what were your favorite and least favorite tracks, and would you recommend this album?
Oh yeah, so these aren't in any particular order. Um, yeah, I might have maybe set that precedent. I don't know. But fuck it, chuck it out the window. Yeah, so my three favorites are Venom, Boss, and Pressure, and I'm just going to talk about each of those quickly individually. Venom, holy fucking shit! Honestly, one of my favorite beats in hip hop. Just oh my God, I don't think I've ever felt this much energy, this much BDE from one track. Oh my God. It's electrifying. Her power and her strength on this just honestly, it could help Sisyphus roll that rock right up that hill. And then Boss again, another absolute fucking banger. And just like a wonderful piece of confidence. Just it's so great, so authoritative and commanding, and really helps. Just gives the album this grounding of like, yeah, she's vulnerable, but you always know there's this inner core of absolute strength to her, and I love that this song for doing that for the album. And finally, Pressure. A bit of a slower cut on the album. Like Josh said, the production is a little bit more stripped back. However, I do feel like there's a few elements that really like sell it, like the way the drums kick in line with her flow. I think that's wonderful, and that energy then kind of carries on throughout the rest of the track. Another thing I really like about it is these kind of soulful morning vocals in the background that really help relay these really like dark gray themes of death and letting go and grief. It's yeah, I think it's a really powerful song, and probably uh, the highlight of her emotional side on this album for me. To go on to my least favorite track, I'll probably say Therapy. It's not a bad song. I think it has some fun elements. Like I do really like the hook, but I just think it's probably the least interesting song on the album for me. I don't think her flows are especially great, and I don't think the instrumentals particularly interesting. It's just the song that I found myself the least drawn to when I was revisiting this album. And to would I recommend this album? Oh God, yes. If you're going to listen to anything, well, actually, that's a lie because just so much good stuff has just come out. Um, but please listen to this. Please listen to this. I absolutely implore you. She covers so much in this album, as I said. You will find something to like, even if it's just one song. That one song you like, you will fucking love because it's amazing.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with you. Just to quickly, well, first off, one thing I don't agree with, I do actually really enjoy Therapy. It felt like a very cinematic moment of the album. I love the sinister delivery of the hook where she's like, "No, no, I don't need no." Like the way it's so deflated and kind of defeated, but also kind of there's sinisterness to it, which I really enjoyed. Reminds me of like Gold Sweatshirt a bit. My three favorite tracks are Venom, Offense, and Boss. You and I combined have basically already said why I really like Venom and Boss. And one thing I like to say about Offense is I just love how much the production complements her voice on this track. The production weirdly reminds me a bit of that video game Cuphead. It sounds like something you'd get out of like a 1920s cartoon. Really wacky, off the wall. Uh, but there's something sinister to it again. And yeah, it's awesome. My least favorite track is Flowers. I just don't think it's a very memorable closer for such a brilliant album. And I think this album deserved a more exciting closer. But I do enjoy the moment of Flowers when shit her last line, don't be so optimistic. That was a that's a beautiful line. Yeah, I'd give this a strong recommend. One of the best rap albums of the year, and definitely the best rap album coming out of London all year. I doubt it gets much better than this. Although that new album from let me pull up his name real quick.
Yeah, I heard something. There was something good that came out quite recently.
The only other I haven't heard it yet, but I've heard the new Slow Tie album is really great. So that might be another like British rap album to rival Lil Simz. Uh, but hey, that doesn't take anything away from this album. It's a great album. And her name has two T's in it. It's not Lil Sims, it's Little Sims, which tells you that this is high art.
Exactly. But also, it means you can't say lil, but you can say little.
Little, there we go, beautiful, beautiful stuff. What a great way
Exactly.
to
Yeah,
end that review. So moving on,
there you go.
moving on, our older kind of album that we're discussing that wasn't released this year is Father John Misty's "I Love You, Honeybear." Mattie,
Yay!
what is your history with this album?
Like I said in our first recording, yay, I finally have history with an artist. I'm a huge fan of pure comedy. It's a fantastic album. I'm not a Father John Misty detractor. I think he's great. Although I only have heard one of his albums.
Well,
Although
he's only got like
he's
four,
only got
so, and the
yeah, he's
fourth
only got
one isn't shit. So I mean, you basically heard all of them.
um, so yeah, am I okay to just get into my thoughts on the album?
Let's just jump right into it.
Let's just jump right into it,
To
guys.
quote Raven.
This album is wonderful. I love it so much. I might like it more than pure comedy. I think it's I think it's I mean, I guess he's kind of stopped it now, but Father John Misty's covering of the human condition has just been really throughout his saga of albums is just fantastic. And this album on Love in the 21st Century is just as good as any of those other projects. What I really love about this album is I feel like it covers all aspects of romance in our time. This only having come out 4 years ago, it's not dated yet at all, despite how commonly albums date in modern times. Just it covers how who you were before your relationship affects the relationship, how the economic condition affects your relationship, or even how it doesn't, even though it should. How sex and sexual attitudes come into play in your relationship, even though you might consider yourself liberated from such societal expectations. And also, the best thing that it covers is just the sheer ridiculous act of love itself. Um, Father John Misty um, laughs at love to such an extent that this is what you said. He finds so much comedy in love that it almost comes back round, and you realize how much he appreciates having something so pure and wonderful in such a fragmented world. And yes, I don't believe this album is entirely wrapped up in sarcasm and irony to the point that there's nothing genuine to extract from it. Quite the opposite, really.
Yeah, once again, you've given me the unenviable choice of following that amazing description of the album. I completely agree. It does a beautiful job at kind of portraying a very sincere form of irony. It takes itself very not seriously. It makes fun of itself and it hates itself a little bit. But underneath all of that is just cushy, beautiful love. And this is one of the few sincere love albums of the decade, I'd say. It's very wholesome, very pure, despite, lyrics referencing their bed sheets looking like a wall shack painting because of how much sex they've been having. Again, it does a great job at kind of, contrasting kind of gross out lyrics like that with, but enshrining them and kind of adorning them in loving and beautiful and lush instrumentation. Uh, Showing us love as it really is and not some weird kind of Catholic clean version of it. Which is ironic given the name of the artist. Yeah, I completely agree. It's lovely. I love the album cover. I think the album cover is emblematic of everything that you said about this album. That kind of self-referential, self-mocking, but also there's a beauty in it. You said this in the last recording, and I'm just gonna steal it. Um, Even though the cover is really tongue-in-cheek and funny, depicts Father John Misty as a baby Jesus being held by Mother Mary, who is depicted to look like his wife, to show some weird Freudian kind of self-deprecation.
Which is a common theme throughout the album. Like incest.
Yeah. Uh, the colors really pop, and the art is beautiful, and it's kind of it manages to hose the line magically between self-deprecation, irony, and sincerity and gorgeousness. So yeah, that's what we think about Father John Misty. I love you, Honeybear. Matty, what were your favorite tracks, and would you recommend this album? Oh, and you have to pick a least favorite track.
So favorite tracks. Gotta go. Pretty classic here actually. I'm gonna start off with I went to the store one day. One of the probably the most genuine moment on this album. Probably because of its simplicity that uh, you can see in its title, just saying, "I have all of this because I went to the store one day," and that's honestly beautiful. Like that's honestly so simply beautiful that I don't think there's anyone who can't relate to it. Um, and that simplicity is reflected in the song's instrumentation as well. It's quite stripped back. It's very humble and very honest. And that's why it's so wonderful and such a nice way to end the album. Really, for me, disparages any criticisms of Father John Misty as an overly ironic, overly self-referential, like knob, basically. Um, yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. And then on the flip side, the very first track, I Love You, Honeybear, which is so overly saccharine, so gorgeous that it becomes absolutely beautiful. God, the soaring strings on this song are radiant. They are absolutely beautiful. And just
I'm grinning so widely right now, but none of you can see it.
it's just perfectly captures that feeling, and just in auditory form. um if there was a machine that were able to transmute the feeling of love into a song, it would be these these sounds that I'm hearing right now. And final favorite track is I really just love When You're Smiling and Astride Me. Those gospel that got the gospel choir in the chorus with Father John Misty like soaring over them is it's beautiful. Like it's just beautiful. And the fact that it's one of the less lyrically technical songs on the album, and just kind of features a lot of just raw, uh, instead of actual lyrics, they're just sort of noises that they're singing, and it just conveys a lot of the pure of just the raw energy of love. Like when you're smiling and astride me, this is how he feels. It's just this beautiful chorus, and that's lovely. I'm a huge sap, which I think is evident from how much I like the songs on this album and the songs that I like on this album the most. Um, the my least favorite song on the album is probably the night Josh Tillman came to our apartment. Sort of by default, I don't really dislike it. It's just again one of the less memorable songs for me. But still great. You know, well, great might be a bit strong, but still good. Still good. You know, of a certain level of quality, doesn't hurt the album in any way. And I would absolutely recommend this, no matter who you are, whatever path of life you're in, single, whatever, together with someone. Just listen to it, enjoy it, and reminds you of how wonderful love can be. And that's what this album's trying to achieve. So that's fantastic.
Again, I'm in total agreement with you. I love everything you said about this album, the way you described it. I agree with you. One of my favorite tracks is "I Went to the Store One Day," which is one of my favorite album closers ever. Fun fact. What the hell, Josh Tillman? I'm fairly sure I've cried to this song on multiple occasions, and it's a gorgeous conclusion to one of the best love albums of the decade. Another track that we didn't talk about much is "Idle Husband." This is one of my favorite songs ever. It's an amazing track. It's one of the most rocking songs I've heard in the past few years. And quite frankly, it's better than anything Bruce Springsteen has ever written or recorded. I also love the Oscar Wilde reference. It's very, I do feel like Father Misty's persona comes off as very Wildian at points, in his wit and dickishness. Um, and conceptually, I think Idol Husband does a lot for the album. It really fleshes out the emotional arc of the project. And instead of just giving you this like only focus on the falling in love part of meeting someone, it talks about kind of the reflection on how shitty you were before you met them, part of meeting someone. And it acknowledges like the desperation of just wanting to love sincerely and purely after a life of debauchery and escapades. And Chateau Lovey Fall in C for Two Virgins, I love because it is emblematic of. I've said emblematic a lot today, haven't
I actually don't think you have.
I? I feel like I have, but yeah. This song is emblematic of the album's entire persona. It's both hilarious, riotous, fun, while also being very sincere, loving, caring, with witty lyrics that make you laugh and make you tear up a little bit as well. And yeah, I agree
Oh.
with you. I've written in my notes, the night Josh Tillman came to our apartment? Question mark. Because it's still a fucking great track. I mean, this is a perfect album. I'll go out and say it. This is perfect. I have no problems with anything on this album. I guess the night Josh Tillman came to our apartment is the least emotional track on the album, and it's mainly a showcase of his wit and personality, which Simz Idol Husband kind of refers to himself in a negative way on how he was kind of a dick, which is also done on like Nothing Good Ever Happens to the Goddamn Festive Cow, where he kind of satirizes the toxic masculinity of like possessiveness in relationships and lines such as she gets some more often than a blow up doll, which he himself acknowledges in like interviews and stuff that it is a very gross line and was intentionally so. Like it was meant to mock the kind of weird, possessive, toxic masculinity thought trains of thoughts that people can fall into. Again, this album's very self-reflexive and very self-deprecating, and that is a feat, a strength of the album. So I strongly recommend this album. Amazing. I hope you all listen to it, give it a shot. And I think we've ticked all the boxes. But wait, there's another. Mattie has an album she wants to talk about briefly.
I forgot about this.
Wave Blood's Titanic Rising.
Yeah. Even though I have already done this, I forgot that I was going to do it again. Yeah, this is my favorite album of the year so far, and can see it being my favorite album of the year overall. I adore this. I don't think there's a every time I listen to it all the way through, I cry many times. It's and all because of the singer's beautiful voice. And not to detract from the album in any way, but God, it's all because of her voice. Her voice is just so powerful, and she knows exactly how to use her natural talent and the production as well to really hammer home these huge epic moments, but also some really beautiful quiet moments, like on the song "Picture Me Better," which is just a beautiful, quiet closing song about seeing someone after a long time and just being the person that you wanted to be or the person you wanted to be for them. And that's wonderful. My favorite song in this album is Movies. Why wouldn't it be? It's absolutely gorgeous. There's not a time I've listened to this song and not been brought to tears. That's not an exaggeration. It is absolutely beautiful. One of my favorite songs. Oh God, I mean, I didn't really know where I was going when I started that, but I think maybe ever. Um, Absolutely beautiful album. Feels like a mother carrying you into salvation, but also she's just as flawed and vulnerable as you are, and I love that. So yeah, I absolutely recommend that album. Please check it out if you have the chance. Art is absolutely beautiful, by the way. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Titanic Rising. Thanks, Josh.
Awesome. I too have heard the album. I thought it was fine. I'm not as enamored as Matty is, but I agree. Movies is the best track on the album, and that is a really phenomenal song. Wow. What a swell. It's a swell. It's a swelling track, it's gorgeous. Anyway, I'd like to announce what will be on the next podcast, which we'll be recording very soon. For our two new albums, we are talking about Injury Reserve and The Mountain Goats. The Injury Reserve is a self-titled album, so it's called Injury Reserve. And the Mountain Goats album is, let me just look it up.
In League with Dragons.
In League with Dragons. Thank you, Matty. That typing you heard was me looking for the album title because I'm very professional. And then the older album we're talking about is the 1975's "I Like It When You're Asleep" for "You're So Beautiful." Yes, so
The grossest album title I've ever heard. No exaggeration.
I am so excited to talk about it. So, thank you everyone for listening to Minority Arts Appreciation Society podcast. I believe we have ticked all of the boxes, and I hope you all have a lovely evening.
Yeah, bye everyone. Thank you so much for listening. We always appreciate it. Have a wonderful day wherever you are.